Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. I'm switching it up a little bit with this one's genre. So today, I am reviewing Run Girl by Sammi Goldberg. This is a YA thriller about two sisters who, one night 6 years ago, ran into the woods, came in face to face with the cockroach killer, the serial killer that had been tormenting the town, and ran out. But their father was lost to the killer, and 6 years later, some clues begin to pop up that the killer might be back. And you have one sister, the amnesiac, who remembers nothing from that night, Amelia, who really wants to dig in and find out more about what happened. And you have Anne-Marie, the one that remembers everything, who's like, yeah, no, never want to go in there again. So it's definitely a conflict of interest between the sisters. But right off the bat, this book did a lot of the regular thriller stuff. Now, I don't read thrillers as much anymore. I read them a little bit more in the past before I even started my booktube channel. But I've noticed that a lot of thrillers tend to make everything terrible, tend to make everything morally questionable for the sake of the angst of it. And to a certain extent, that's to be expected. But the biggest problem I have with that idea in this is the idea that the girls are ostracized, villainized, outcasted, they're pariahs, because everyone assumes that there's some ill intent with the fact that their story from that night doesn't match up. Anne-Marie swears up and down that there was this cabin and they can't find it, and so they're like, well, that's kind of weird. Why would she say there was a cabin when there wasn't? And they never found their father's body. And here's the thing about that. I am a foster parent. I have said that in videos before. I have dealt with young trauma survivors, both as a foster parent and working in a special ed BD room. Trauma, especially when done young, just screws up your memory. Just screws it up. And I've had foster kids who had literally no memories of the very horrible things that we knew happened to them, because that's what trauma does. So this idea that an entire town looked at 10-year-old trauma survivors and was like, seems sus that you don't remember, that's an objectively, morally terrible take to have, especially in the modern age. This book was published in late 2021, so we're not dealing with like 20 years ago before mental health awareness started spreading around. So there's literally no reason for these girls in any kind of town with basic human decency, especially in America, where young, light-skinned girls are considered like the most to be protected from violent crime aspects of humanity. There's no reason for them to be considered outcasts or social pariahs. And I get that's like not the biggest thing. It doesn't even come up in the story all that much, but right out of the gate, the book kind of pushed the dark, twisted secrecy to the point where it was breaking believability entirely. And it also does the thriller thing of like, oh, look, all of these people have deep, dark secrets, but as a result, everyone's kind of an asshole. Like, even people who are acting with, you could argue whether or not their motives were pure, are still doing horrible things. If they're not highly unethical, they're outright illegal, and literally, like, everyone is doing them. So it's like, I could not tell you that I had a character that I really liked. I could sometimes empathize with them in like fleeting moments, but for the most part, it's like, you did a horrible, horrible thing, and you did a horrible, horrible thing, and that's questionable. Like, no one gets a pass in this one. We do have Anne-Marie, who has severe anxiety and kind of imagines cockroaches all over her, where she'll scratch to the point of bleeding, and there are probably should generally be trigger warnings for that kind of anxiety, because the narrative walks you through her thought process. So if you are someone that struggles with anxiety, it could be cathartic to see it on the page. It could be triggering. I don't know, your mileage may vary. Just be aware of that. Now, obviously, this being a thriller, it's going to be very hard to talk about the plot. However, for me, in a mystery thriller, the plot is the point. That's why the characters all being basically morally questionable people didn't matter quite as much as it would have in other books, because they're not the point of it. They don't matter as much as the plot and the secrets and the pacing. And that was pretty good for the most part. I especially like the moments where Amelia would like get a vague memory that could go either way, could have multiple meanings. And Anne-Marie, you know, constantly making vague, worried thoughts in her head that you couldn't be sure what they were referring to. And it all kind of picking up, especially really the last half, was fairly fast paced with secrets being revealed constantly and big endings. And, obviously the big thing, that I can't talk about, is the big reveal. What happened that night? What are the secrets being kept? However, I will say that I did guess them by about, I want to say, vaguely around the halfway mark. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't hold being able to suss out the twist against a book. I am of the belief that if a book has done its job in laying out clues to the mystery, you should be able to figure it out before it is revealed. Now, you can argue, you know, how late or early in the game should you be able to figure it out, and if you figure it out at X point, is it still a good twist if you figure it out that early? And there was one or two extra moments in it that I was unaware of, like a couple like extra added little, not their own twists, but like layers to the twist that I hadn't been expecting. But again, that makes this pretty difficult to review without spoiling anything, because as much as I liked the pacing and as much as it built up, the writing style was very succinct and kind of kept up a quick reading flow to add to the sense of tension and build up. I also did find several plot holes, and obviously I can't reveal much about them without saying too much and spoiling things. I'm going to try to speak as vaguely as I can to give you some examples of the kinds of plot holes that were in it, but for one thing, so you know Anne-Marie is keeping secrets. And in one moment, there was a thing where she said the thing that was there that wasn't there, and it was like, no, Anne-Marie, you would have known once it was revealed that they wouldn't have found that thing. So why did you even say it was there if you wanted to keep the secret? Of course, that could have also just been, again, a traumatized 10-year-old not thinking clearly. Or there was, again, how do I say this as vaguely as possible? Clue A that was referencing clue B, but the only way that it could have been referencing clue B is if the person that left clue A had been aware of clue B's existence, and there's no indication that that person ever knew that clue was a thing. That's as vague as I can make that. But the idea of, if I go back and reread this with the knowledge of what the twist is, am I going to go, oh, that was there because, like, that's what a mystery and a thriller are supposed to do. Once you make the reveal, you are supposed to be able to go back and reread with new knowledge that this thing's in. But if you go back and reread and there's new things that don't make sense, then that's not as watertight a story. Now, again, I'm not usually the kind of reviewer to talk about plot holes, but in a mystery thriller, the plot is the point. I'll let it go in, say, a romance, because if the romance gives me the warm feelies enough, that's the point of it. But here, the point is the twist. And there were just some things that didn't totally feel watertight to me in the reveal. However, I will give this a pass in that literally all of the teenage characters are stupidly reckless, just like the most stupidly reckless, because they're literally on their own in the woods looking for a serial killer with literally no plan what to do if they were to actually find him. So, like, yeah, that's just reckless on a whole other level. But teenagers do stupid things. So if we're talking teenagers too focused on their own end goals to see how horrible an idea this entire thing is, I'm gonna let it slide, because that's actually pretty realistic that a teenager would do that kind of thing. And in general, I did like how quickly you can get through the fast twists and turns. It definitely feels like it ramps up, like I mentioned before. I guess there were like some characters you kind of feel pity for. There were two romantic subplots, one of which was queer, and I was all prepared to be like, yes, queer romance, but again, everyone is horrible. And you know what? You know what? Lesbians deserve to be horrible people too. We deserve representation of questionable lesbians. But because of that, I didn't really feel the fun sapphic vibes. But also, to be fair, I didn't care about I believe they're both straight. I think it's a hetero romance either. Couldn't really get into that one either. So, I'll give both of that a pass. Although I do think it's funny that I am still working through all of these queer books with dark themes. The gay nerds really are depressed. But in general, I gave it 3 stars. Pretty solid, all things considered. Like I said before, some minor plot holes, but the reveal is pretty decent. And the general build-up and emphasis on secrets was nice and angsty and had me genuinely wondering what was going to be revealed next. And I like that. And in a thriller, that's a lot of what you're looking for. So it was a solid choice in that respect. I am, as of right now, still open. Still doing that thing to myself where I keep accepting books because I don't want to close again, even though I'm not keeping up reading them. Love that for me. If you're interested in a review request with the knowledge that it might be a hot minute before it actually comes out, you can message me. I'll have that information down in the description below. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.